our students discussion. We have our student discussion further down in the agenda, but I'm gonna go ahead and move it up before accentuate the positive, if that's okay. Did you want to do a quick introduction?
Yeah, just thank you, Mr. Kemp, for you're kind of a expert at this. Thank you for bringing your students to ask questions of the board, and the board loves these meetings to answer questions, be in front of students, because this is why we do what we do. And just for we do this at Phoenix High School as well in the fall, a day meeting, and then this middle school meeting is in the spring. So super happy to have you, and I know the board is happy to have you as well. By the way, I'm Brent Berry, your superintendent.
Why don't we do some quick introductions, and then I know you have some questions for us that I'm excited to hear. So we'll start with you, Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca Weathers. I've been on the board since 2021. I've got 2 kiddos in the district and 1 graduate.
I'm Dawn Watson. I've been on the board since 2013. I had 2 kids that went from kindergarten to high school and graduated to the district.
I'm Polly Fairmont, directing Javier. I am a graduate of Phoenix High School, and this is the end of my first 4-year term on the board. And we are all running unopposed who are running this year, so I'll be serving another 4 years coming up. I'm happy to be here.
I'm Michael Campbell. I'm the board chair. Been on the board for 5 years. I have a 2nd grader at Orchard Hill and a feral 4-year-old who will be at Orchard Hill in 2 years. So I'll be warning whoever's principal at that time. Yeah, love doing this work and serving the community and all of you. Javi, would you like to introduce yourself? This is one of our student reps.
Yeah. My name is Javier. I'm a senior at Phoenix, and I've been on the board for 2 years now. So I've been involved in leadership and a lot of different roles throughout the high school for a lot of years since my freshman year. And now I'm just happy to be able to get back in a way that actually creates change.
Can I say something?
Please.
Because Javier is very modest.
Yes.
He went to the National School Board Association's conference in Louisiana and talked about rural schools to all school board members in the United States. So he is making great changes, and he's a great leader. I just wanted to put that on your resume.
Yeah, so something, yes. Something, how many, is this all 8th grade class?
Yes.
Okay, so something for you all to know, once you get into 10th grade, you have an opportunity to serve as a student rep on the board. And we have currently 4 student reps. So there's an application process, and we do interviews, and the board selects student reps. So Javi, this is his 2nd year doing it. We have another board rep, Aubrey, who is serving her 2nd year. And it's a really cool opportunity to give student voice to the important decisions that the board makes. So something to think about. If that's something that you're interested in, it's good to start thinking about it now and kind of talking to the right people. I'm sure Javi could be a resource for anybody who has questions. But that is definitely an opportunity. And then we're working on expanding opportunities for our student reps to be able to get involved with some leadership training and some mentoring and things like that. So it's a really, really cool thing, and always expanding, always looking to improve it. So Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself? Sorry.
Sarah Crawford, Phoenix School Board member since 2016. 3 graduates of the district. Huge fan. Invite me to your stuff. I'll show up.
She will.
She will.
I would like to I know she's plugging in her laptop right now, but I would just like to recognize Sarah. This is actually her last day board meeting with students. She'll be.
Would you love me?
We do love you, Sarah. Sarah's term ends this June 30th, and we very much appreciate her service, and we're going to miss her very much. So thank you, Sarah. Okay. Oh yeah. We're not gonna get rid of her that easy. Okay. All right, let's get to your questions. I don't know who's going first. I'll let you guys handle that. If you could just just say your name and ask your question, and we'll do our best to answer. What's that? What's that? Calvin? All right. Hey, Calvin.
Yeah, it's okay. We're not gonna bite.
My question is, what does it take to become a school board member? All right, I'll take this one. So, for a school representative, like a student representative or a school board member?
Why don't we do both?
All right.
Yeah,
well,
answer for you.
We'll go ahead and talk about like the student representative. Like they mentioned, there's a application that you fill out in the beginning of the year, like maybe, for example, first quarter. And what you have to do is you have to interview, from a student perspective, you have to interview a bunch of your peers, like 15 of them, about a school topic. And it could be the first day of school, the first football game, homecoming, because that should have already happened by the time you're doing this. And you're basically just showing that you can get information from your peers that would benefit everyone. And then you have the ability to like see different perspectives that would help you make good decisions and talking to the board that make the decisions. So you'll do that, you'll turn that into the office, and then you'll be able to have a interview in front of all of them, giving basically your speech, your presentation of what you collected in front of them. And from there you get nominated. Yeah.
Very good, thank you. You want to answer for the board?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is this? Ronnie should answer. I think.
Okay, I'll answer. So what does it take? So I think there's a logistical answer to your question, and then there's a philosophical answer. And
why.
the second one's a lot longer, and I'll try to keep that short. But so logistically, you have to live in the district. You have to have been a resident of the district for 1 year. You have to be at least 18 years old. And then our district, because we have parts of Medford and Phoenix and Talent, we have 2 different zones. And so you have to apply to run for the board based on which zone you live in. So there's Talent, and then there's Phoenix and Medford and parts of rural Phoenix that are in that zone. And that's pretty much it. There's a lot of commentary I could provide about there not being any more requirements to be able to run for board. And then philosophically, I think we all have our own answers for why we're here and why we want to do this work. But ultimately, hopefully a board member seeks to do what's best for kids, for all kids in the district. We are nonpartisan positions, so try to come in with that big picture perspective of how we can best serve our students. We oversee the budget, we pass policies and oversee policies, and we provide governance for the school district. And we also advocate for the school district and for public education regionally, statewide, and nationally. We've had a lot of people who travel to Washington and like the National School Board Association. Dawn is on the Oregon School Boards Association Executive Committee, so that's a big deal. So, and then we constantly show up in Salem to advocate for laws that best support you all and our staff and our community. So, yeah. Did I miss anything? Yes, you have a question? I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Yeah, go for it. Here, let's get you a microphone if you don't mind, so that. No, that's okay. It's okay. I'll repeat the question. Go ahead.
Sarah, yes.
Do you have a rainbow sticker on your draft?
Do I have, this is Armadillo text.
Really cool.
Thank you.
Let's see what it was.
Yeah, do you know about Armadillo Technical School? It's Armadillo Community Charter School now. And that's one of the things that our school district, well, in Oregon, the way charter schools are set up is you have to have you have a hosting district, and Phoenix Talent School District hosts Armadillo Community Charter. Yes, good. And, they're located in Phoenix and they support students who, maybe aren't as successful in a traditional school environment, who may be looking at a GED or maybe working or may just have life situations where going traditional school just isn't a good fit. And, love us some Summer Brandon, who was their executive director. And, yeah, that's one of the stickers. So, yeah. There you go.
I have no idea what that is, but I can't. They will not stop.
Can you say your question again?
And then,
Oh, yeah, those are just snacks for the meeting. Is that what you're asking? Yeah.
Yeah, every once in a while we get snacks. Sometimes they're better than others. Sometimes we have a meeting around dinner time and we actually get fed.
I love
Yeah, yeah. Those are like one of the few perks. No, just kidding. There's a lot of perks. Yeah, thank you for your questions. Okay, what's next?
What is your most memorable moment as a member in Watt?
A lot of.
By the way, Nancy, would you like to introduce yourself, Nancy, before we?
Gladly.
Yeah, thank you.
Buenos dias, good morning, Nancy Castillo McKennis, and I am also one of the school board directors. And, how do you want me to say it?
Yeah, just how long you've been on the
Oh,
board?
I've been on the board for 4 years, almost 5 years, and I am also up for re-election this year. It's really an honor to get to serve the community, and part of what I think it's really important is to listen to youth, to listen to families. But also be aware and have representation. So this is why, for me, it's incredibly important to be on the board.
Okay, so the question was your most memorable moment. So does anyone want to share a memorable
I
moment?
can share one. I had the opportunity to travel with Javier, who is our student representative. And I hope that you're all 8th graders, right? So my hope is that you might consider supporting us. And by a way that you can support us is the way that Javier shared what his role as a student representative is on the board. But I had an opportunity to travel with Javier as his chaperone to a nationwide conference where he was one of 4 students on a panel, and he talked about what it means, what it feels like to be a student in a rural school. And I was just really humbled and grateful and honored to have someone from our state, from our community, represent us at a national level. And he did fantastic. People were really proud of him. He shared what it means to him. He talked about the importance of rural schools. He talked about the importance of engagement, the importance of adults showing up. And it was just like I learned from him every time I have conversations with him. So that was one of my absolute favorite moments as a school board member.
Would anyone else like to share?
I'll share a recent one because it speaks to some of the legislative. So Dawn and I went to Salem and we had planned the date around our schedules to go over spring break. Happy spring break, Sarah and Dawn do soon. And we got to go to Salem and we had the opportunity to be in the room when Representative Marsh presented to the House Education Committee continue funding protection for our schools for the ADM, which is how schools get paid for the fire impact, because the students, our population of students has not come back into our community, the population of families haven't come back. And so to be in the room that day and to hear that and remind how far our community has come since then and how far we still need to go was really a poignant moment for me. I would say recently that was a pretty impactful moment. And then all of our favorites probably, well, I shouldn't speak for the whole board, but handing you your diploma cover at graduation. Super cool moment.
Anyone else?
well,
Okay, next question. Who's that?
Do I have to stand?
Yeah, and use the mic.
Is it just on already?
You can do it.
It's just so that people, if anyone's watching online, just so they can hear. Yeah.
How do you believe our school should be involved in helping the community?
Polly. Polly gets this one.
Yep.
Sorry.
So that's a little twist, like, how do I help the community? This is more
No,
like, how does
How
our
do you
school?
think our board should be involved?
Our schools.
Our school district should be involved in the community?
So I'm a big proponent of, I think probably, like I heard the memorable moments, I get to go to help at track meets, I get to go into schools. This is my favorite part of being a school board member, is participating in also not only our community that I've lived in my whole life in Talent, but also to be actively engaged in going around to different schools and observing the things that are happening there for our community. I feel like this was really, a spotlight was put on this during COVID and also during, the time when, we had the fires. So I have two daughters that have graduated from Phoenix High School. And after the fires, one was working at the time, after she graduated, she came back and was working at Phoenix High School. And my other daughter graduated in 2020, and they came together to find community members and what happened to them after the fire, and kind of help the district office locate people, and what had happened to them after the fires. I felt like this, and also during that time, we offered, during COVID and also during the fire, we offered our buildings as a place to gather. There was, meals that were given out at the schools. I really feel like this is a gathering place and that we need to pay attention to that as well. And we're changing our facilities. Like there's, things to have, like solar components put in our building. So if the power goes out, we have a place here where people can go to where there's actually power that they can access. I never thought in my lifetime I would see my town affected like it was after the fires. My ex-husband and my daughter lost their home in the fire. And we were pretty lucky that they had other plans, and it was a transition point for our daughter to go to University of Oregon. So I have to shout out to Mr. Kemp. Mr. Kemp was a huge influence in her life, and choosing what she does in her life on a daily basis. Actually, she still talks about the impact that Mr. Kemp had in her life. But I feel like being a central place for us to gather is important to have. And so I think that's one way that the schools can be involved in the community, and also offering supports. We have a lot of supports that you would not have access to if the schools weren't here. Mental health, physical health, and things like that. So that's my 2 cents about that.
Thank you. Very good question. Last one, I believe.
What is the most successful decision of the school board made in life?
Oh, God. One decision?
Successful decision, right? Did I know that?
I'll go for mine. I think
I
we
know
all
what you're
have a
gonna
different
say.
one.
Yeah, go for it.
Mine was the board decided a few years ago to go out for a bond to improve the schools. I think there was improvements here at the school, and the high school got a whole remodel. And I think that was the best decision we had made. We were able to get CTE programs, really good CTE programs in the high school. And also we got HVAC systems, which really helped during COVID. So most schools were trying to upgrade their HVAC systems, and we had good systems in place because of the bond. So I think that's probably one of the best decisions. And again, back to the community voted yes and said, yes, the school needs this money, and yes, we're willing to pay. So that is a good example of how the community and the schools work together.
I would agree with that. I think I say this every year, but it's all a new group of kids. So sorry, Mr. Kemp, but schools aren't provided a budget for facilities. We have money in the budget that we use to try to keep our facilities nice, but we don't have money in the budget to build new schools or to make major improvements to schools. And the only way to do that is to go out to the community and say, would you please pay more on your property taxes so that we can either build a new school or make improvements? That bond has also helped us make improvements to all the schools, including Talent Middle School, with safety things and heating and air conditioning and
Well,
the
it extended
seismic.
your cafeteria. I'm not sure if it came here
Yeah.
with older siblings, but
Mhm.
that was that little area outside where you can stand inside now.
Mhm.
Before school starts was not enclosed prior to 2019.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
well, but by the time. it's closed,
Yeah,
But
so,
yes, so.
yeah, no, it's, so credit to the community for agreeing to support our schools. My brother works at Three Rivers and they've tried to pass a bond just to fix their roof and get air conditioning in their buildings, and the community has said no. So I wasn't on the board at that time, but these two were, and I have a lot of respect for the board's decision to have the courage to make that ask of the community, and to have a good strategy to get the support, and to do a really, really good thing for our schools and our students. So I would agree that's the most successful decision you all have made for sure.
And that decision might feel like, maybe not tangible because we don't see it on the day to day, but I have the privilege of for work, I go to different communities, and actually just last week, there is a community in Eastern Oregon that is also working very hard to help with. And some of the things that the community was sharing and students were sharing and teachers were sharing is we don't even have hot water in the facility. And I know that these are much smaller communities, but it makes such a difference. Sometimes it's hard to see how nice some of the things we have because we have them. But it's really, I'm not happy that they don't have water, but I'm grateful that I get to hear how much work has been done and advocacy and commitment and engagement. And it's really because the community cares about you all so much that people do invest in making the schools better. So even though sometimes that can feel like we don't see it, we don't hear about it, I'm really grateful for the community because you are also incredibly important and you are worth all of this effort. And it's not perfect. We make so many mistakes and we're kind of silly sometimes, but I'm grateful that you're here helping us make better decisions for you.
Have you all seen the new tennis courts at the high school? Yeah,
So
that's a
that
good example. That
Was
was,
that fun?
I think so.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was. actually.
Mhm.
So one of the other things that the school board does, our only employee is the superintendent. And that, which you've met, right, for the So that sets the tone for our district. And so that's one of the other, I would say, important decisions that are made by the board is who we look to oversee the running of the district, because his or her responsibility is to hire staff that directly impact who your teachers are and who is answering the phone and helping you with attendance, or who's keeping your restrooms clean and who's helping make those decisions that really do impact that. So we've been very fortunate in our district to have stellar superintendents. And so that's also a really important decision.
The board made that decision the same year that the bond passed, so two really good decisions that year. I'll give you a lot of credit. Do we have, I know you have to get going? Yeah,
With that,
yeah.
I think, we all thank you for giving us time and, your insight on what the school board is all about. And thank you for your efforts in the community. And, so.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
echo
you.
that. We have a tremendous board. The board that serves you as students is absolutely amazing, and we feel very grateful for them just taking time to listen to students. That's an important part of their job. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Look at us. Time.
I know. I know.
Good to see us.
Hey,
Is that Kim?
Oh, you wanna see yourself like an owl? Come stand in the front, see where it's kind of lights are that look like eyeballs? If you stand in front.
Now back up a little bit.
It's on.
Oh, there are two of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, this,
Talk, maybe a
Does it
little.
look like an owl to you?
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's blinking. I don't know if that was.
Right here. Oh, nice. Now.
Oh. I think your teachers have you headed somewhere else.
going to sit down. Are you laughing at me?
Not at all, no. We're glad you're here.
I'm gonna sit down and join.
Okay, next we have accentuate the positive.
Wow, that's nice.
Sorry, are you starting a top Casey?
Did we have a microphone too? Okay, good, yeah.
I want a microphone so I can. Do you love me?
All right, welcome everybody, Casey Homestead, principal at Talent Middle School. I think just quick shout out to Mr. Camp and the students, because Brent said why we do what we do, and so being able to have students here, so it's not a special thing. Just want to give a few kind of shout outs of individuals and then some upcoming things we have. First and foremost, I feel like I don't show her enough, but Carrie McDonald, our school nurse. I obviously you guys know it's my first year here, the district I was in last year, we didn't have a lot of access to nurse support, so I took on role of principal and nurse in many occasions, and that's not my specialty, I'm trying my best, but just her heart for kids and her advocating for kids and making sure we keep kids safe. I wanted to give a track update. We had a meet yesterday. We have 76 student athletes as part of that. And when I was talking with our coaches, it kept John Cornett's name kept coming up, and just his support, the high school support of our students. Next Friday, I know we've talked a lot about web and what we do for our sixth graders, but next Friday we have a movie night just for our sixth graders that is going to be happening here in our small gym, and our students are leading that, putting that on. And then a shout out to Liz and Bree for just their help in making web happen. And then lastly, just to shout out to the high school. The high school league leaders were here last week to meet with all of our eighth graders to get them excited for that transition and supporting them. And some of the conversations from our eighth graders just talking about classes that they can take and getting excited about that. And so, yeah, I'm very grateful that they came over and had some fun there. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. It's gonna be my turn.
Good morning, Kent Collier, principal at Orchard Hill. I want to highlight a few staff members and their contributions and accomplishments. At Orchard Hill, we're in day 2 of the big game, which means the SBAC test. Our third, fourth, and fifth graders today, probably at this hour, are completing the English language arts section of that. And I just want to thank Diane Wolf, Holly Swift, Heather DeGrandis, Danielle Lee, and Holly Tampton. We've created 2 special testing rooms with some great decorations and some refreshments and encouraging bulletin boards. But all of those guys went really above and beyond to make an environment where students walk in and they feel that it's a special time for them to take their test. Speaking of Holly Swift, our building secretary, Erin has been leading, as you know, a group in the district to focus on increased attendance. And each building has various initiatives going on, but I wanted to thank Holly. She's put together an attendance initiative raffle. Every day a kid is present, they fill out a little raffle ticket, enter it into a big hopper, and on Fridays we have a bunch of drawings for incentives, and it seems like our attendance has increased maybe like 2.7 or 3%. So it's going in the right way, and maybe not a huge jump, but it's a jump nonetheless, so I'm proud of him for that. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Heather Love from Talent Elementary. Also, like Kent said, we're in testing season and I want to thank, especially our title and our special education departments for their orchestrating all the supports that our kids need. So, and of course, our classroom teachers who work really hard to prepare our kids. We have a ton going on because it's spring and spring is our busy time. So just write these down. Tonight we have our Dia de Niño celebration, 5 to 7. It's the 100th-year anniversary of the holiday, which is really special. And we think it's our 25th anniversary activity. So big, good times. So you're all welcome. Appreciate snow comes. And then next week on Earth Day, which is Tuesday, the 22nd, we have a walk and roll event. So a couple years ago, we engaged in the Safe Routes to School, seeking input from our community about things we wanted to do to improve the walkways to school. So regionally, they've hired a local coordinator and she's helping us to take this off the ground. So that on Tuesday, we'll start at Chalk Roberts at 7 and then meet at Ray's at 7:20. Really just encouraging kids to be physically active and make their way to school with their feet while they're on some little smaller wheels, but that'll be fun. Also, next week, we have many of our classrooms who are participating in the City of Talent Art Walk in the evening. So 5 to 7, we have student art on display for that art walk. We have Sweet Feet, we have kids art over at the Historical Society and at Talent Maker City. So that's cool. And then last but not least, next week, this is why I'm really tired. We have Arbor Day event coming up. So we've been, you probably remember a few years ago, or 2.5 years ago, we planted a bunch of trees here at Talent Middle School. Talent Elementary will be the site for this year's on the 26th. I don't have the time, but I will get that to you. So all good stuff.
Morning, board. Aaron Santi, Phoenix Talent Rising Academy. Just a couple things for PTRA. It's been an exciting full week at PTRA. Between state testing, iReady Diagnostic for upcoming field trip, and we've been very engaged and excited. Navigating that state testing from home can be a little bit challenging, so I want to thank our teachers, Heather Ayersblood and Maddie Macias for engaging them. It takes a lot of extra training actually to make that happen from home, so I want to appreciate them. And finally, we have our annual trip to Wildlife Images tomorrow, starting at 10:45. So we'll be having students and as well as their families joining us on that trip. So that's going to be great. We look forward to that one. We're happy about the weather we're going to have. Also, Sean is not here this morning. She had another engagement, so she asked me to share her positives, but they're too long. So, I may not read all of them. Hopefully she put the important ones up front. So according to her from PES, last week, our family engagement team hosted our first PES talent show in many years. We held tryouts with 50 acts and selected 24, including singers, dancers, piano performers, joke tellers, a Rubik's Cube solver, and many more. One thing to point out is because our IA Aubrey Carey teaches students dances during recess, our final act consisted of a group of students from across many classes and grades who performed together. This is an example of removing barriers to ensure all students have something to showcase. Glad I read that in middle school. Jenny Brown's second grade TBI class wrote persuasive essays for ideas of a new ice cream flavor for Harper's Ice Cream Shop in Phoenix. Isla Wilkerson's persuasion worked. Harper's will be featuring her creation of Apple Flash. We encourage all of you to stop by and give it a try. And lastly, some upcoming events from PES. They've got Kinder Lodge along with the rest of the district on April 30th. Walk and Roll to School May 13th, as Heather mentioned, and the Spring Showcase at PES will be May 21st.
Good morning, Kelly Soder, Early Learning Director. I don't get a chance to give you an update very often, so I just want to do a real quick shout out and accentuate some positives at the preschool. We are full bore into spring. I want to give a shout out to our staff, Rosario Medina, Diana Martinez, Sandra Munoz, Dana Morales, and Sarah Bello have just been doing an amazing job all year, really digging into dirt and paint and water and all kinds of cool things. Our theme this month is Creative Me. So we've had a gardening week, construction week, spring week, flowers, all kinds of fun stuff. It's really super, super cool to see how far kids have come this year. We also are really supporting our staff in growing their expertise and their knowledge. So I want to give a shout out to Diana Martinez, gearing up to finish her associate's degree in early childhood education this summer. Sandra Munoz has also earned her Child Development Associate credential, which is another kind of specialty credential. So just really excited about that. I think we have a third staff member that's getting ready to enter kind of a fast track RCC early childhood program. Really, as you know, shortage in the area of childhood providers. So RCC has a fast track program that costs folks nothing. So I think we have a third staff member that is going to be going through that. So really excited about that. The last thing I wanted to let you know is we continue to subcontract with Family Nurturing Center for Preschool Promise, but we also have an opportunity to apply to be our own grantee or our own program provider. So we're in the process of completing that application with the Department of Early Learning. It'll be due at the beginning of May, and we'll find out about that at the end of May. So either way, preschool charges forward. Thank you.
Wow. Hey there, board. Erica Ochoa, assistant principal over at the Pirate Ship. Our proud principal is not in the building today, so here I am, giving you some positives over at the Pirate Ship. So a shout out to our student outcome teams. All of our certified staff participate in it this year. Staff chose some high leverage practices that they felt would make direct input on student outcomes in their classrooms. They worked in cross-curricular groups to develop lessons and tools that would engage students more deeply. And last Wednesday, we listened to their presentations by each of those groups, and we'll continue those presentations on May 7. It's amazing to see what these teachers have created and developed, and it's resulted in teachers visiting each other more in those classrooms, getting ideas that they can pull from others in our building. So shout out specifically to our curriculum engagement specialist, Alyssa Barber, who helped make these groups happen, facilitated a lot of the learning for those groups throughout the year. Similarly, yesterday we finished up our distributed leadership teams for the year. These groups were created after staff decided that what they wanted to pay attention to in our building. We talked about creating culture they want to see in our buildings, not just letting it happen. So teachers decided to join these groups and transform and carry on some positive culture at PHS. These groups range from adult learning and professional development, all the way to spirit and legacy. Great pajama days came out of that, just saying. And so we had great conversations yesterday and about those successes. We're beyond excited also for the transition that's these 8th graders coming over to the Pirate Ship. And we will officially board them for next fall. So we are coordinating several events for the next few months to engage those students and their families and ensure that warm handoff as they jump into the ship. So we'd love to invite you all for our future Pirate Night, which happens at 5:30 in the theater on Thursday, April 24th. So next Thursday, come on over. There'll be some good food, displayed showcase of our facilities and what we offer. We've had a lot of student activities and are excited for Spirit Week, Song Week. My friend Tavi can talk a little more about that. And also a shout out to Maggie Taylor Cheek for her amazing support in SBAC, supporting teachers, supporting me and that planning, as well as Maria Lee for stepping in and supporting in getting kids across the finish line for the Bud Livers Festival. So that's all I got. Sorry, I got a lot. Don't give me the needle.
Good morning, Amy Hans, Food Service here. And I know we've said this before, but I have to give a big shout out to John and his facility maintenance team. I put in a work order and it wasn't that afternoon and Skylar had already cleaned the fans and had the freezer working good. So it's always nice to know you have them there and ready to react right away so you don't lose food. Excuse me. In front of you, you should have a recipe book from our Future Chef event this year. I just wanted to share that with you guys and I look forward to taking it around to all the participants and so they can take it home and remember their time with us. Upcoming in food service, next week we will be celebrating Earth Day with some fun little dessert cups. On Thursday, I'm excited to go to a Rogue Valley Farm to School Procurement Day, to learn more about some of our local options that we will be working to move forward to next year. And just for a little sneak preview, we will be ending this year with local muffins from Miffy's Muffins. And I really enjoyed getting to talk to Miffy and figure out a game plan to how we were gonna switch all of our muffin mix over to this local muffin mix.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
I love them.
Love that. Thank you so much. Do we have anything from the board?
I do. I have three things. Sorry. I
Okay,
missed
go
the last
ahead. And
meeting,
then
so I have to
we're gonna
recap.
do a student rep report. Sorry, it wasn't on my thing. I'm a prison to the agenda that's in front of it, so.
So first of all, I would like to thank Cannon and Joe. I missed the last meeting and I watched the meeting online. And I've watched very many other school district meetings online since I'm the representative of Southern Oregon. I watch lots of school board meetings on my spare time. And I am really impressed. You can hear the break is cut down. You're not if you need to scroll or pause, it's so much easier compared to the other schools. Like holy goodness, it's a dream. So thank you very much for making it work. Not only I think a lot of schools are just following the law, but you actually make it accessible and useful and helpful for the community. Second, I got a call from a friend that works at a different school district, and she wanted to give kudos to Talent Elementary. There was a kid that was at Talent Elementary, had some challenges and moved to a different district. And they said that all of the data and the information that Heather sent over was so great that they didn't have to spend a lot of time it was easy to implement the IEP and all the stuff. So shout out to everybody that is spending a lot of time on that. And then lastly, when every time I go to a convention, I realize how great of a district we have. And I was in I toured an elementary school and I said to the person I was with, when I get back, I'm gonna go see how our kindergarten class works. And she's like, will they just let you do that? And I'm like, they ask me all the time. So I really appreciate the openness and welcomeness and the trust that you letting us come into the classrooms and knowing that we're really trying to learn and help advocate for better things for our students. That's it.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah. I have a couple things to get through. I'll make it quick. A lot of things you guys already know, but giving like the student point of view. The first thing I want to talk about is like the tennis grand opening. A lot of students were very excited for that. I know that a lot of teachers took their classes out to watch that, and like through conversation that I heard, a lot of guys were talking about a team for them next year and how they would be excited, and a lot of seniors talking about if they had the opportunity to join that tennis team this year, they would have. And I think that just goes to show that there's a big future for that tennis program, as obviously seen with the grand opening of it. So that was something that we were very excited about. And the next thing I was going to talk about is the staff versus student game for Sparrow. That went really well, and I think it just brought a lot of people together that hadn't really connected in a long time also. So just seeing a lot of familiar faces again and being able to just have a happy environment, especially for a good cause, which was very similar to our track meet that we've been hosting. So we had 2 back-to-back meets. We had a home meet here at Phoenix High School, and then a track meet for the middle school, where both John Cornett was a very big help, and a lot of people also came in to volunteer. It was it's so crazy how it's very volunteer based, and filling up those spots is important, but we always see people come in and to support their community. It was fun to see a lot of the middle schoolers who are getting really good times and a big future for PHS track. And when it comes to our seniors, we have a lot of things that are going on again, because college application has basically wrapped up, and now it's all the to-dos, all the college housing, registration, and opening up portals. And so the FBC has been a big help with that, especially with pre-registration happening at the same time for the underclassmen. We had a longer advisory this week for that. For lunch also, and we at the same time got our senior dates, a lot of it, upcoming events for seniors coming in, with, just so many things, like we have senior awards night, senior, diplomas, a lot of things are being figured out with diplomas. And there's a lot to do for seniors, also the capstone and the paper, we've also, the senior capstone, senior paper, something that's also been happening, especially going into the fourth quarter. A lot of people have already started their capstone and a lot of people are finishing up their paper, vice versa. DECA leaves for internationals next week on the 25th. And we are very excited. We're going to be competing in Orlando, Florida, if you guys know. And we have had like 4 practices between state and now, just tuning everything up and then getting ready to try to do our best at the international conference. And we've got a lot of funding. Thanks to you guys, thanks to the community, a couple GoFundMe, a couple banners sold. So a lot of involvement coming through for the funding that we got for that. And another thing I want to talk about is there's a challenge kind of going around called the USC Mind Challenge. It's kind of on Instagram between students, and what it is like bringing awareness to mental health through like dumping an ice bucket on you to get attention and nominating 3 other people. So that's circling back around. I know there was like a different version of that a couple years ago. But a lot of students are actually doing that between here and a lot of other schools throughout the nation. So that's something I thought you guys might want to know.
Cool.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Okay, next we have PTA, OSCA update. Do we have? Welcome. Let's, yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I'll just trip over a chair. I'm Lori Evans. I'm the engagement and curriculum specialist here at Town Middle School. I'm giving the report for PTA this morning. PTA is feeling very positive and good about the collaborative and respectful nature of this year's bargaining. Our members will be completing the admin surveys to give feedback to the administrators, and the results will be shared with the ad team. PTEA elections are coming up in May, as well as Laura Latham is running for vice president of OEA, and those elections are this weekend at the Rep Assembly, so we wish her well. And PTA is planning a spring appreciation and recognition event for our members at the end of May. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Watch out for those chairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
Did we have anyone from OSCA? Okay. All right. Next is citizens' comments. Do we have anybody in the audience who wishes to address the board? Anybody online?
No one online.
No one's online. Okay. Moving right along. Superintendent report. Mr. Berry?
Thank you, Chair Campbell. I first want to recognize Diana Rasmussen, who's put in for the open seat that Sarah will be departing. So welcome to this board meeting, a great one to attend. And you know, the student voice is very important, and we chatted on the way in. And so thanks for being here. I also want to, I mean, Joseph Alla continues to be mentioned, but you heard all the activities, everything that are going on. He gets to or gets information for all those and shares that out. I mean, he had a video of the tennis court grand opening out a few hours later. So just always thankful for him. And then finally, I just have, as we continue to prep for next year's budget, and thank Yasmin and her team so much for that tedious and thoughtful work. We will have many info sessions, in our first one for the any of the board members that want to attend will be next Monday, and we'll have another one on May 5th. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Next we have program report, integrated guidance. Is that you, Aaron? Okay.
So we've been working the last few weeks with our annual SIA integrated guidance. It's all wrapped into run now. We're required to share with the board, and Aaron has a report information to share today to meet that requirement from the Oregon Department of Education.
Okay, so this is the second time that we've applied for the integrated programs application. And ODE requires lots of things as part of this, but one of these is a report to the board, and then eventually you guys are going to be required to, when I say eventually, I mean next meeting. You guys are required to have public input and then approve the plan. So let's go ahead and move forward. Try to be as quick as possible here. Purpose is just to give you guys an idea of what the process looked like, what we landed on as a team, and then what it looks like moving forward. Okay. And again, the idea here is look at all of our current data, review our plan from last time, and then see what adjustments we need to make to continue to move forward again in all of these plan areas. Let me go over here a little bit. The process requires a lot of community engagement. We have to engage with many of our communities, including our staff, our students, our families, tribal groups in our area, and the public at large, our community partners. So there's a lot of integration that's required. We have to work with obviously our state legislature and ODE as well. But the concept was to try to reduce it. You guys heard last time, the concept was to reduce the burden in application by consolidating it to one application rather than one for each grant area. Okay, Canyon. So here's all the programs, and they've actually added 3 to the group from last time. So the grants that we're applying for that have been consolidated into this grant are for application, the continuous improvement planning, the SIP, our everyday matters, which is our attendance, career connected learning. That's a new one this year. High school success, you guys have heard about before, obviously. The SIA, student investment account, EIIS, that's our data grant. Early literacy is new as of this year. So that's been folded into this grant as well. CTE we had last time, and then our school improvement, the comprehensive and targeted programs. So all of those are being applied for within this same application. Next, please. So this gives you guys more information. I'm not going to read all these to you. The only new ones that I pointed out were career connected learning. Go ahead to the next slide. These are all the same. And then the next one, again, early literacy was new this year. You guys have heard a lot about that. And then federal school improvement was folded into this as well. It was a separate grant last time. So the planning team, this is who was involved. Again, I'm not going to read all the names, but you can see we have representation from district administrators, school level administrators, licensed staff, classified staff, parents. Actually had some really good input from our parent representatives, as well as some community partners. Next, Adrian. So the things that we had to do, we had to go through this entire process. And I'm not going to call out each of these things separately, but I will say one of the new things this year, that 4th bullet point to tribal consultation, we were required to meet with 3 different tribal representatives or representatives from 3 different tribes to kind of run our plan past them, get their input. That's a requirement of the legislature this time. So that was new. We need to review our 4-year plan, which obviously we did, and then get input from a lot of different groups, including our district equity committee, and take into account our quality education model, et cetera. But I think there were 22 different groups that we had to solicit input from, and for our vocal groups. So there was a lot of input that went into this time as well. Next, Gagan. The equity lens that we used, and this one we actually use in a lot of our work that we do. It's just simply a way of doing business. It's how we consider making sure that we have all of the necessary voices at the table, and that we're being considerate of everybody's perspective. And if anyone is being negatively impacted by any of the actions that we're taking or considering taking. So that's something that we do all the time, but this is the equity lens that we've adopted for this process. Next. Here's some engagement highlights. There's a lot of text on that screen. It looks better on the computer. But some good things, some highlights. Our tribal partners indicated really strong support for our plan. Those tribes included the Confederated Tribes of Coos, Laurentwa, and Siuslaw Indians, the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Indians, and the Klamath Tribes. Those are the three groups who have students with us in our district, and that's why we were required to consult with them. Let's go back a little bit. More than half of our students, again, these are highlights we found during our engagement process. More than half of our students, 56% at the elementary, 54% at the secondary level, feel that there are one or more adults that they have a strong connection with that's supporting them at school. So that's a positive. Our families we found, because we polled our families on all the investments, the significant investments we made last time at this project. And our families we found strongly value our school nurse, our middle school counselors, and our behavior specialists at the elementary schools, as well as the SROs. Staff members value a lot of those same things, but they also added bilingual instructional staff to that as well. So these are things that people are really recognizing the value of our investments in those areas. And then finally, another highlight, our migrant and ELL families feel well supported in communicating with their children in school, especially at the elementary level. So that's something that we really pride ourselves in and work very hard at, is trying to make sure that we're a welcoming and communicative district, especially for folks who may otherwise feel a little bit isolated or marginalized. Okay, Kenya. So here's some of the areas where we found needs during our assessment. Our attendance, as you guys know, it has been an ongoing concern. Our regular attendance rate dropped to 65% last year. That is inclusive of Armadillo, but we still have seen a drop. It's 8% lower than 2 years ago when we first applied for this consolidated grant. State goal, of course, is 90%. Our special ed attendance is down a little bit as well, down to 59% last year. This year, we're about 60%, right, as of this moment. Academically, things that we need to continue to work on are grade 3 English language arts proficiency, 30% pass rate, state average is 40%. Eighth grade math, we were at 17%, which was up, I must say, from 2 years ago where we were at 12%. 17% was a 5% increase, but we're still 10% behind the average. And then another area that we need to focus on is our Hispanic and Ever ELL performance in both reading and math. Those are the lowest of our subgroups. So those are areas that we need to continue to focus on. In terms of climate and engagement, areas that we need to continue to work on. We saw our 3rd to 5th graders' perception of engagement and belonging drop 10% year over year this past year. Our secondary students only cited 22% perception of positive engagement with their classes. Our families identified a need to improve academic performance that ties to the above areas. And our staff members in their surveys identified a need for the district to do a better job tailoring professional development to them. So these are the areas that we've identified in terms of needs. Okay, Canyon. So our priorities, based on all of that input, priorities that the team has worked on for these 3 things. We're going to continue to advance our equity work, support all groups. We want to improve and expand our programs, create a strong, well-rounded education. Obviously, that's what we're here for. And then finally, foster engagement for our communities. So here's the outcomes. So the way this works, the plan requires us to develop outcomes, which are like overarching goals, then strategies to support those goals, and then specific activities within each strategy. So that's the hierarchy that we're looking at here. These 7 outcomes are the same 7 that we identified from last time. We basically continued them with a little bit of wordsmithing. I don't want to read all those specifically, but I will say things that we're committed to continuing to do, making sure people feel included and safe, engaged, that we're closing achievement gaps, we're providing equitable opportunities for every student, and that our students are ready for colleges and careers when they're done. So that's our overarching goals. Okay, and here's the strategies trying to get to those outcomes. There's 9 of them, and they're all aligned with 1 or more of those outcomes. Some of the things that we're really excited about are our CTE opportunities. I think, Brent, you mentioned we have 7 different pathways in our Phoenix High School as compared to like 2 at other high schools, like Crater, larger high school than we are. So we're excited about continuing to offer those opportunities, maximizing our special programs. These are areas where we can serve niche populations of students and families. We think that's an advantage for our district. And continue to find a broad range of data sources to help support all the work that we do. Okay, Kenyon. Now, here are some specific investments and activities that we're going to continue to support, or new ones that we've chosen to call out. So again, not going to read all of them, but some of the things that have been very popular. Summer school programs have been very popular among families and been helpful for our students' academic success. School nurse, again, was very highly rated. Our grad coaches and counselors at the high school, along with Project Youth Plus, and college advisors, they've all identified those as critical for their on track, ninth grade on track students, as well as our high school graduation rate. They feel like those are critical for that. We're gonna put some more, let's go back a little bit, Kenyon. We're gonna put some more money into transition activities between 5th and 6th grade, as well as 8th and 9th grade. We heard from families and students that was a little area of nervousness and concern. So we're going to try to support that a little bit better this time with these grants. Continue to support primary grade instructional aids. That's been very well received and highly rated and effective. We are going to continue to support fine arts. That's been a real focus area for us in this last investment. Training members, including our classified staff members, improving training, especially with respect to our marginalized populations or traditionally underserved groups. And then speech and language pathologist support. We need to continue to support that through these grants, along with all those others. So again, not going to read all that, but you guys have that. You guys have access to that slide. All right, Kenyon. So if we have additional funding, if we get through all of that and we still have money left over, some other ideas that we have to help continue to support our district, funding potentially additional CTE pathways, further expanding our minorities programs, and then having additional high school AP offerings. These are all things that could happen if there's money left over after all those other investments. Here's how the state judges our success. And you guys know this. I'm not going to read all those, but essentially it's all those accountability measures that either we set for ourselves, those longitudinal performance growth targets, or those that they set for us, including graduation rate, SBAC scores, et cetera. So this is how the state understands success with respect to our investments with these grants. And go ahead. These longitudinal performance growth targets, that says the ODE will co-develop those with us. That was true up until 2 days ago, when the ODE decided they're not going to do that anymore. And so they're going to continue the LPGTs that we developed 2 years ago. And those are all set around our strategic plan areas, as you guys know. So our 3rd grade reading, our 8th grade math, our attendance, our graduation rate, our on-track 9th graders. Well, it says them all right there. I just didn't list those out. But those are continuing to be measured. We're just not going to set new targets on those. And that was just determined by ODE 2 days ago. All right, next. So here's the things that we're focused on to determine if we're being successful with these grant investments. Obviously, we want to narrow our achievement gaps and continue to do that. We want to increase our 3rd grade language arts and 8th grade math scores, continue to improve 9th grade on track, and graduation rate, which has been great, as you guys know, in the last couple of years. Our regular attenders want to increase that. And then on the engagement side and belonging side, make sure that we can improve and increase those among our staff, our students, our families, and our community. So here's a little graphic of what happens next. We're right at the very beginning. We've created the plan. So now after that, it's going to go before you guys for review as well as public comment next time. We'll submit it to ODE. They will review it and give us feedback as to whether we need to add any information or change anything. And the grant agreements, once they accept it, will be sent out. And then once we get those, it'll go before the board again to accept those grant agreements. That is it, as succinctly as possible. Any questions for me or for the rest of the team as far as how we got where we did, or specific questions about investments?
I was privy to this information because I got to be part of that, but I think hearing the dollar amount that some of these grants mean or as a component of our budget is helpful information. So
yeah, good question. So Fred, you've got information. I think they recently released the specific amounts.
They have the preliminary allocations, and so for SIA, it's about $2.3 million a year, and then it goes up a little bit in the second year of the biennium. High school success is about 630-ish thousand. Early literacy is going to be an interesting, see how that plays out, because if it goes with the current service level recommendation, which is how it was this current year, it's about 170,000, but the governor's recommended budget is to double that, to 360,000 for us, with those investments. So that'll be an interesting, something interesting to see how it plays out. That impacts, if that happens, it impacts some high school success dollars overall, because it's just not brand new money. So it impacts a little bit, but our SIA increased actually, and some districts didn't. So if that recommended budget, governor's budget goes through, then our high school success is impacted a little bit. So
Hope that Yasmin can even give you the specific combined dollar amount of those 9 programs. Right off the top of your head. No? All those grants that we just talked about combined. It's between $5 and $10 million.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a good chunk of change.
It's a big range, Aaron. You're giving yourself a lot of cover there. No, for early literacy, remind me, is that only K through 3 or?
K1, 2, and there has some allocations, I believe, for upper elementary, but it's kind of like high school success, where it's a 9 through 12, but you can spend a portion of your dollars in 8th grade. So
I'm thinking about our preschools and how, especially if that budget doubles, you know, what work can be done at that level.
there may be some provisions in early literacy too. I'd have to dig in, and Tiffany's on her way to a conference today, but there may be some provisions on that end of it as well. So I know there's transitional activities, but I'm not sure if there's just resources. So.
And then one of the biggest things that just kept showing up for me through your presentation is I'm not saying I'm against state testing. It's important. We need to show up. We need to be prepared for it. You know, that's a snapshot in time where we need to demonstrate where our kids are at. But I just wonder, is it a requirement that that's the only measurement we can use? I'm just thinking about all the other ways that we have to show how our kids are doing. And these types of things are, you know, we're doing these kind of plans that are done every year, that we need timely feedback. And can we incorporate things like iReady and Dibbles and some of those other assessments into seeing where our kids are? My mom's a high school English teacher, and she facilitates state testing. And I'm not saying our 3rd graders are showing up doing this, but the amount of kids who show up and just go and, you know, do a fun pattern or something and don't take it seriously it's alarming. And so I'm spending a lot of time thinking about, do we know where our kids really are? And it seems like these supplementary assessments are a good start for that. So
do you want to take that one?
So Michael, you are now on my team. I spent, I don't know how many hours having this discussion.
Yeah.
When I was in, Atlanta, there was a discussion with, the accountability bill that's up, I might talk a little bit about. So I was on the phone, Brent answered my questions, Tiffany Lambert answered my questions, OSBA was chatting with me, and I had several long conversations with Representative McIntyre. Testing, because in the accountability bill, guess what? There's more testing requirements. So I am with you 100%. I tried to get the SBAC out of testing, but I was not successful. Not only me, there was a lot of people trying. And so we might actually have more testing at the accountability bill. So let's talk afterwards and see what we can do. I'm still working on it, but it's a little bit slow.
Is that the only measurement we're able to use to?
Well, as far as the accountability of what we're judged on or how we're held accountable now, yes. So there is some, COSA and OSBA has really been looking at, other methods that actually show growth instead of just that one snapshot in time in the spring. And so that is actually something that we're really, because, and 100% of our students take those iReady tests. You can opt out of the Smarter Balance test.
Right.
And so that's why the validity of the one-time autopsy, and you can opt out of it. It's just, but that's not something the legislatures, I don't think, is willing to do right now.
I think they're trying. So my conversation I had is that there's so many tests right now and they're all different. And so they want a test 3 times a year that's the same. And that's a lot of testing. And I said, well, are you gonna get rid of the other tests that we have? And the answer was maybe not. So, and then my question was, they want accountability, but I was like, and they want the data to come to the board and they want it in a public meeting, which is fine, we already do that, but not all boards do that. So there's a lot of accountability measures that doing more tests, and I think this is a great time. It might not pass this time, but talk about all the testings and all the time that testing takes. And I had a conversation, I said, can we do some other kind of data form? And Representative McIntyre said, well, I want it, if you do like an apple, test an apple and then an orange and then an apple, then how are you gonna know what's going on? And I said, well, I wanna test the apple tree. Like, why? Like, is the ground okay? How is our teachers getting supported? Are our students getting supported? What are we needing around the support system? What are we needing around this apple tree to make it grow? Because it's not just the apple tree, the apples. And so it's a conversation that I think is going to be multi-years, but I think that's a great question. But I think a lot of it is a big topic right now of accountability. And Brent's been on the accountability meetings, and it's kind of frustrating because I feel like we need accountability, but there's got to be a way that is going to benefit the students and our staff.
We do, it feels like there's a lot of systems in place to check boxes to show that we're, and I appreciate the good work that this committee, it's good work you're operating, but you're operating within the construct of what you're given. And we're actually interested in making sure our kids can read and do math. That's what and that we are closing those gaps. And we don't want to just check boxes. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for all the work, and just know that this board will continue to advocate to make sure that all that work you're doing makes sense and is actionable and timely for our students. So yeah, thanks, Erin. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. On that note, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to pass the consent agenda?
I move to pass the consent agenda.
You done?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sarah. Any objections? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Information and discussion, legislative OSBA update is first item.
Well, guess what? On my list was the accountability bill. So,
right.
so there's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff of accountability for schools, and it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. It's being controlled by the governor and who's the other person that is not the speaker of that? Someone else important. And so there's a lot of conversation, a lot of people trying to have conversation, but it is, it's going to take a lot of work, and we'll see where it comes out of. And I think we're going to have to massage it in later. There's a cell phone bill that passed the House, it's going to the Senate. It's bell to bell, which we were not looking forward. So bell to bell means beginning of the day to the end of the day. So lunch, breaks, no cell phone service, no cell phones for students. I see a big problem of that in the high school, so I have a feeling that will change. In different states, what's happened is all the kids go outside on the sidewalk and they're on their cell phones. So that becomes a safety issue. So that's something that I know that our team is talking about trying to keep local control. I know currently we have the cell phone policies in the handbooks. And I think that's great because each school can have what works for them. And if there's something that comes up, I know like AirPods and there's like glasses now that have music on them. And so you can quickly change it instead of waiting for a board meeting and getting the policy. And we usually have to make sure the policy's through OSBA. Like, it would be way quicker if we could just handbook, okay, everybody, next Monday, the rules change. And so I'm really still advocating for local control, but I think that that might not be as I'm not as optimistic as I was beginning of the session. Advocacy Day is coming up. OSBA is having an advocacy day. Unfortunately, Sarah and I were gonna have a bus go up, but there wasn't enough interest. So there's a few people from Southern Oregon going up, and a whole bunch of school boards will be talking with their legislators. I don't know what the plan talks are going to be. They're having a meeting on Monday night, but I'm missing that because it's my husband's birthday. And but then they're going to give us some literature, and I'll have that pretty soon for you. Ways and Means is going, the roadshow for Ways and Means, which are the people making the budget, is in Klamath Falls, the 25th. You can sign up. I recommend pre-signing up, and they're also taking on what you're talking about, so you don't have everybody talking about one item, because I've been to those Ways and Means and there's like 45 people are talking about forest and no one's talking about education or something else. Let's see, there's also some public meeting laws bills that are going to be interesting. I don't know how it's going to work. There's two going out there. One describes a work session, and another one is a little bit more rigid, that is saying public testimony has to be at the beginning of every meeting except work sessions. And so that one makes it a little, because it doesn't say what the beginning of the meeting what that means, and it also says a decent amount of time or something like that. And that's kind of like, what is a decent amount of time? 5 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour? Like, it doesn't say it. So I'm keeping my eye on that. Sorry, I'm talking.
Do you know
so much.
who's brought that bill before them?
I believe. No, I have it in my notes. My notes got deleted, but I can give you the answer to that later. I forgot the name of the person that did. And then Nancy and I went to NSBA. I typed up because I think it's helpful of what workshops I went to. It's in the thing. I did lots of different workshops, curriculum, student voice one. I learned a lot. And I don't know if Sarah, Nancy, or Brett want to add anything else.
I'm happy to add something. NSBA, we had an opportunity to vote on the policies, all of the policies passed. It is really fast. Something that just really stood out to me was there was a state that was voting against the policies that were listed. And it's fascinating how some, especially when we're thinking about why would somebody vote against this? The rationale was very fascinating. And it wasn't because they didn't believe in that work. They really wanted to create protections and safety for their constituents in the school. So my takeaway from that, the value of having conversations with all kinds of people from across the aisle, and the value of being able to understand one another and support one another in spite of having various opinions. That was great. The other piece that I just got really excited about was a conversation around having student representatives. I went to a session around that, and I felt incredibly grateful for the support and the continuous opportunity for us to learn on how to support students and how to engage students, and the value of having student representatives. There was a lot of conversation around student representatives being voting members and why that might be important. And while student representatives are not voting members as of yet, I think that that really creates the importance of that connection so we can represent their desires. And I know that through a lot of conversations. For example, when we were talking about snow days, which can seem maybe like a discussion about what is important, there was so much dialogue and engagement from the students. And I think that their comments, their influence, their questions really influence the way that we get to vote on things. So again, while we might not have that, the second best thing is really having that strong connection and relationship building with students. Something that I would love to consider for our next year is having not necessarily student representatives that are 8th graders and 9th graders, but having a set, building that pathway for students to come and be ready and feel prepared. So they talked about having, I'm glad that Casey's here because the different schools talked about having like policy, I can't remember what they called it exactly, but it's a pathway to start to coach youth to talk to adults. So like Mr. Kemp just did, who brings the students and then they ask questions of the board, is having something more on a continuous basis. So students get comfortable speaking to adults, especially when they're hoping to advocate for something. Sometimes that connection can feel really intimidating, like, I don't know if I want to talk to the principal. I don't know if I want to talk to the superintendent. I don't know if I want to talk to the board. So you're just creating this pathway to ensure and support student success and in student voice in that space. And what I also really appreciated about that strategy is that it also helps us how to better listen, how to ask questions. Because sometimes we come in with our adult brain thinking we know all these things, and it's just, I think it would be a huge benefit for us to start 8th graders, 9th graders, especially since we are only considering student reps from 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
I think
So
that's a skill
it's a-
set even, well, I think it's even just a great skill set to start to
Yeah.
learn that
Yeah.
even, because then it just fosters.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And some kiddos have that already, right? They're so engaged in so many things. Like I think of the students from DECA that could probably speak to anybody, teach us how to talk to other people. But not all the students have that opportunity. So how do we create those spaces for people to have those conversations? So I really enjoyed that. Great speakers. Oh my gosh, maybe one of my favorite things was the student performers. Holy cow, the caliber of talent in dancing and music, and I was like crying and excited and clapping. I was just incredibly proud, and it's just so beautiful to see how students shine and represent when given the pathways and opportunities to do so.
I was gonna add that I went to a different workshop than you, but they talked about student reps in every single building, even in elementary, starting to talk in groups and giving voice, and it was very interesting. So I think that's maybe a workshop conversation we can have, but, and then piggyback on Nancy, there was some excellent, like, holy smokes, these are students. There was a break dancing that I swear they should have been on like they should be like doing like the Super Bowl, and like they were amazing. Yes.
But there was this other, the all female vocal, they opened up the session. Chills. I mean, they were just so incredible. And then I felt like I was in Little Havana at the last performance. Those students, holy cow, all the boys and the trumpets and bass and the women and the young ladies just from music to dancing to singing to playing instruments. It was just really exciting. Okay, one last thing that I'll say. The keynote speaker, and oh my goodness, his name is escaping me, but he wrote the book Pivot. And he also, we got to hear him at the Oregon School Board Association conversation, and he came and spoke. But the way he explained his work, and at the National School Board Association was like tenfold. And something that was just really touching is him creating pathways for students in different places around the world to connect. And he does it through art and music and poetry. And it just really reminded me of the importance of highlighting the ways different people show up, the way people sign up for different things. While we might glamorize sports a lot, and we might forget how important arts and music and connection and like those pieces are truly not just like an exaggeration, but they're truly changing people's hearts and connection. He was connecting folks, and this came from students requesting this, and he's like, I think I can facilitate like a Zoom meeting. And then there's now these really amazing programs for students just to connect across literally the world through a lot of differences in beauty and connection. Anyways, it was so wonderful to get to hear him talk and for him to really think about or share this message of hope. And that when challenges continue to come, as we continue to see them, as we will continue to see them, how do we really stay connected to other people? How do we pivot in a way that makes sense for us? So I was incredibly inspired by him.
So what I've heard is extra money that was potentially allocated to, advance, increase, expand the fine arts program.
Yes.
Has strong board support.
Sarah.
And staff support, by the way, Sarah.
Staff support is so
Yeah.
important, so important. At the conference that I was at in February, the keynote speaker really highlighted the importance of listening to our teachers. How do we support our teachers? And I know that sometimes it can be like a really tough balance because we have students, we have budgets, we have family, there's so much. But the people who are doing the work day in, day out, are those incredible teachers, the instructional assistants, the bus drivers who get to greet the students. There was another suggestion about having, like, how do we start the day off, right? And I love what Phoenix High School has been doing, that they have music throughout, like, passing periods. And I thought, can we really better, what are ways that we can better support our bus drivers? They're the first people to see the kiddos. And while we might think of them as like this transactional part of the work that we do, they are an intricate part of the work. They get to bring kids home, or they get to pick up kids from home and bring them to school. And also get to leave the kids, you know, there's a lot sort of system, school system that drops off kids that makes such a huge difference. So support for our staff, for instructional assistants, it's so key. How do we really listen to them and support them? And it's a tough balance, I can imagine, but this idea of arts, I was like so amazed, and it made me think of when Don went to Washington DC, and oh my goodness, thank God that we have our students displayed at the Capitol, their artwork displayed at the Capitol. And we don't highlight that as much unless we go on a yearly basis, but we talk about football, we talk about baseball, basketball, you know, all those other things. And I would just love to do as he said, ensure that we're focusing and investing in the arts, because it really does create a change in transparency and compassion.
Sorry for the interruption. Web leaders during the passing period, please stop by the counseling office. Web leaders to counseling during passing period. Thank you.
Extracurricular activities are not ways that my brain works to connect. I knew my kids needed to play sports, and I was like, they're playing all the sports, and they loved it. So that was great. But thinking about arts and dancing and music and poetry and all those other things, like I think about our band, they go to national competitions and they're doing really great. Like, how can we just continue to elevate that? So that's a growing opportunity for me to be more thoughtful. And I just really appreciate you, Sarah, if that continues to be the theme that you support and advocate for.
Perfect transition to a financial report. And how that's going. Brent, did you wanna?
Yeah, you just have a financial report up through March and just thank you to Yasmin to really consolidating and estimating our ending fund balances and really looking at the encumbrances to make sure that they're accurate. So I'll turn it over to you, Yasmin.
Hello, everybody. Hear me?
Yes.
Yasmin Carabinas, Director of Accounting. So, for the financial report, we're able to update all the way through March. And, as you can see, the income balance projection is not higher. One of the reasons is I will remove the plan reserve because we're not going to need to use it before the end of the year. Another one, intentional usage of grant funding. So the difference between January and now, there were some grant funding that is gonna end at the end of June, and we were able to switch some of the FTEs to grant funding, and that's why it also grew. So that's really what I have to share for the general fund. As for the bond projects funds, I changed it a little bit from capital projects, which also had SB 1149 monies for energy savings. And it also had the TMS solar grant included. And I figured it would be best to just present the actual fund, project fund, so you can see, because some of those other grants may take away from the balance. So we wanted to see a true balance just for the bond monies. So as of March 31st, we still had $2,250,000. And my projection for the end of the year is with all encumbrances we have right now to finish up the high school tennis courts. So we're gonna end up about $2,070,000. Other than that, for construction excise tax, as of March, we have about $625,000 on that fund. And the projection is to end up in about $351,000 if we're able to finish up with the TMS solar grant before June 30th. And some of that money is gonna come back next year once we're able to get some of those rebates for energy savings. So that money is gonna come back instead of about $300,000 that will come back to the fund. So anyway, I think that's all I have for now. Any questions?
Remind me again of the timing of the ADM security. When do we typically get that?
So for ADM security, we went ahead and claimed the monies for the 23-24 allocation in April, and we received the full amount. But for the 24-25 allocation, which is the last one, it's projected to be paid until the summer of next year. And then, so we will have until June of 2026 to spend it.
Okay.
And that's it for that. So that's one of the reasons, where we're trying to take advantage as much as possible from grant funding, so we can intentionally grow the general fund balance to prepare for losing that funding.
Yeah.
No. Other than that, the only thing I have to mention is property tax collections seem to be lower than I was expecting. So that's going to play into the state school fund formula. So it just switches from state school fund to property taxes, but I wanted to mention it to you just as a side note. I may need to do another revision to that estimate of revenues and membership before they cut it off for the May payment, which is the reconciliation payment.
And just to confirm, I know we talked about this, Yasmin, but we are looking okay. Sometimes at the end of the year, we pass a resolution to make sure we have appropriations, but we should be okay. There may be a situation where we have to come to the board in June to pass a resolution, but I just appreciate you staying on top of that and understanding where we are.
So far, so good. So if something comes up or something happens at one of the schools and John needs to spend more money, then I'll definitely begin before June 30th.
I meant to ask during legislative, where are we at with ADM security?
So it's essentially on hold. It's in Ways and Means, and so it'll be just a while. It's kind of sitting there, but I think on purpose-ish. So
Okay.
letting it lie, and then when that comes up for allocating funding to that, we'll have to have some testimony on that. So,
And thank you to our legislators, especially Pam Marsh. She is,
absolutely.
and I think she's put in a lot of favors, like, please, please, please. So,
Yeah.
I'm more optimistic on that than any other bill that's out
Okay.
there, if that
Good.
helps you or not,
Yeah,
but,
that's
yeah.
good.
Like.
And just a reminder, that's a 1 year, not the original
Yeah.
4 year, the 1 year
Yeah.
support.
But there was talk about, because one school is almost there and
Yeah.
one school is way below, and then we're kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
And there was talk about, if you need more support, maybe possibly later, but not all three schools, because one is like, what are they, 40 students away from back to ADM, so I don't think they're gonna need money.
Well, or as much,
Yeah.
because if it just holds harmless till the 2019 ADM,
Right.
they still are included in that, just may not need
Yeah,
it just won't impact the fiscal as much.
Yeah. And that's what we kind of said for the 4 year, like, hopefully we don't need it 3 or 4 years down the road, because we have building or places for our family to move back in, so it just hasn't been, that hasn't been the case.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Yasmin. Appreciate it. Okay, student handbooks are there for your review. Any questions come up as you've reviewed those? Okay, if that law does in fact, the bell to bell, is that in effect for the next school year?
I
They
think,
declaring an emergency like they like to
so
do?
there's like 5 or 6 amendments to these there's like
Yeah.
2 or 3 bills and 5 or 6 amendments to some of them. So
Yeah,
I'm not exactly sure. I want to say next school year will go in effect. I'm 98% sure it'll be next school year.
And just so you know, that we submitted testimony I submitted testimony as their superintendent, supporting the bill with the local control piece. And now it passed the House with some amendments that were bell to bell with no really local control. We're actually gonna submit testimony to the Senate opposing the bill, which seems weird, but it's.
It's the strategy
Yeah,
that has to be used so that they
Yeah.
really see how.
And we may
how that
just use the
decision
same letter,
impacts. Mhm.
the same document, and just put opposed rather than support, because it says the same thing. We
Yeah.
want local control.
yeah, well, yeah, we don't need to debate the merits of it right now, but these mandates come without support for bringing in parents and explaining the rationale behind it, and how does enforcement work, and what's the practicality of actually, what happens with the phones then? What, are they just in the back, all the things, so.
Michael, get your ready.
Uh,
Get your letter ready and I'll-
But
Here's what Pam Marsh believes too, because we had a legislative call Wednesday morning and said we are all in for accountability. Let's get something accountability that makes sense. This cell phone ban bill just distracts from accountability. Mandatory class size distracts for, accountability. Some of these things, let's just go all in on accountability and not have any other distractions.
But this is I don't know if it's rare, but this is something absolutely require a revision to handbooks, so just be aware of that. So this is what we have right now, but we might need to update those for the next school year, depending on what our.
Oh, this actually brings up a good.
Yeah, go for it.
I just looked at the surplus list. Sorry, I moved on.
Oh, we're on the item I4. Are we moving down?
Sorry.
No problem. I can appoint you chair for the last few months if you want. Go out with a bang.
Sort, right?
Go for it.
So Brent, you and I had a conversation about potentially looking at doing some different things with maybe career pathways. Are these really something that we should surplus? I mean, I'll take, this is.
And this will come back, it will need to be approved next meeting, so I'll make sure these are really old.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
But if there
Continuous?
is something salvageable that
Okay.
we'll talk to John about that.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up, John.
I was gonna ask if we want to suspend the rules on that, but it sounds like we want some more time.
No, I
to-
think we.
Okay, all
I
right.
think we've got a little.
Yeah.
If
Okay,
that's
sounds
okay, I
good.
would like to wait.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good thought. Okay. Oh, next is the targeted feedback survey proposal from OSBA. It looks like this is both that and just general support for the whole superintendent evaluation process, if I'm understanding this correctly. Does that sound correct to you?
I was thinking it's just for the targeted feedback. This is just the
says-
component for the targeted.
Well, it
feedback.
says
talks about
present a proposal for superintendent evaluation
Yeah.
and target.
Oh, so
feedback
this
survey.
includes, so this isn't updated.
I think
Second
she-
bullet, that
yeah.
includes targeted feedback.
So-
won't do just the targeted feedback.
Right.
Without-
Do just the superintendent by.
No, no, no,
Right.
this is saying, the way I interpret this, what we had her do this year, in addition to the
Yes.
targeted feedback. Yeah, okay.
And they will, thank you for that clarification, and they
Yeah.
will not, OSBA will not do targeted feedback if they're not doing your OSBA
Oh, is that
superintendent
what you're saying?
evaluation.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Denise.
So-
Okay,
So that's,
got it,
but this is not just a proposal for
got it.
understood, yeah,
But they'll do just the evaluation without the targeted
Correct.
feedback,
but the targeted,
okay.
it's like a little extra, all
Yeah.
part items.
Mhm. Okay,
Which I'm for this. I think that this will help give a fuller
Mhm.
picture, horrible word, to the board and, information,
Mhm.
for the superintendent evaluation.
Mhm. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I was just gonna say, with conversations I've been having about accountability,
Mm,
and people asking me, does your board do this? Does your board do that? And I'm like, yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. So I think that the pathway we're taking is going to set us up for success
Yeah.
with accountability coming down the pipeline, that our board is going to have the data and the knowledge and the tools to like bring things up versus I think it's gonna help us more. So I think it's worth the money.
I agree. It's very reasonable. So, okay, great. We're scheduled to take a recess. I think Brent has to leave at noon. Do you all mind if we just power through the action items?
I think
Is that okay?
Do you want to excuse the administrators?
Yeah, if you need to go, I know you have schools to run. I don't know.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Erica, I don't know who's in charge of the high school right now, but if it's Tammy, it's probably fine.
Tammy and Jim could probably handle it.
Yeah. Thank you all so much.
Oh, he's gone. With his right.
Yeah, hey,
So, I-
finish strong there, Hobby. Okay, all right. Okay, next is inter-district transfer slots.
We have zero leave, well, zero are leaving.
Yeah, we have,
That's really.
yeah,
And I haven't looked at necessarily all of these to see if they qualify for hardships. That's just a number we have so far.
Yeah.
okay,
So
got
should
it.
I make a motion?
Yes, I'll take
Okay,
it.
I move to approve the interdistrict transfer slots as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Polly. Thank you, Dawn. Any discussion? So just to clarify, we may not transfer 17 out. This is just how many applications we have in. Okay, got it.
Because we're only doing hardships.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay. All right, we shall vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Polly?
Yes.
I vote yes. Food service contract. Hopefully you all, and thank you, Yasmin, for getting that to the board. I wanted you all to have at least a couple days notice and not get it this morning. So hopefully you had a chance to review that. Did you want to just briefly touch on is the increased insurance, did that make it in there? I haven't looked at the most recent.
Yes.
Okay,
Got one of these.
yeah.
Can you hear me? Is it on?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, I got the information from the PACE authority, and she said it's normally $1 million in 2 million total. But so I have already changed it to 2 million. This is based on the ODE template, so I left it like that.
Mhm.
I also submitted it to Sodexo for review. I haven't heard back from them, but the reason why we put that note that, we still need to get the approval from the ODE, but I had already had a discussion with Richard Williams, so it looks like it's good to go. From Sodexo, you know, as part of the proposal, there's an exception list on the contract. One of the clauses is like, we're not allowed to hire if the contract were to end management for a year. In that one, it's already in our current contract, so maybe some of those exception items may move to the actual contract, but for now, our legal counsel recommended just to leave it on the proposal because we are accepting the proposal for the contract.
Okay.
So, yeah, and that's it. I know I put summary of the proposal, and it's actually like a lot of pages, but I wanted to make sure that you got a sense of why the committee chose to think so. So-
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we had a good discussion about it last meeting. too.
Yeah, and just so you know, so this is on for action, so if the board approves this, but if for some reason ODE comes back, by the way, Thad's gone through this whole thing and actually was really impressed by the contract. But if there's something that ODE or even Sodexo comes back that wants to modify, we may have to reapprove it, but it looks good for now.
That increase in insurance, is that something Sodexo has to have more coverage or?
Yes.
Okay, which is an
Yes.
increased cost to them.
Yeah, it was just Pat's
Yeah.
recommendation because it's been like that on the template.
Yeah.
From 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And if something were to happen, it's protection for them and for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
As well, so to
Yeah.
really makes sense.
Does, yeah, okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Sodexo as a successful proposer and the contract to the 25-26 as presented, including any changes requested by ODE and or Sodexo.
Second.
Thank you, Polly. Thank you, Rebecca. Discussion?
I just have one question.
No,
Yes.
she has it too.
Which is regarding, well, I'm just gonna use regarding Amy's contract. So does it mean that Amy can stay
Yes. so-
pending ODE? Is that a pending ODE?
No,
it-
that's,
Did I just
that's if we
misunderstand?
went to do our own food service, we can't.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
No, she's part of the
Gotcha.
proposal,
Okay.
she's part of the
Okay.
proposal.
Gotcha.
In fact, I make sure that I put it in the resume.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then-
Alright, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
she is, that was one of the reasons, you know, some of the companies didn't really have already a general manager. of the
Okay.
proposal.
Okay.
And I think, you know, the service really falls in the foods, in that.
Right.
Okay.
So,
I just
We're not
wanted
gonna
to
have-
clarify that with the new contract, it didn't mean that
No.
our contract, okay, thank you.
yeah, the only reason why it needs to go to ODE for approval is because they handle, it's a
Oversee.
federal grant. So they have to be involved on every step, and that's why it goes to approval for them, because they wanna make sure that we have pretty much everything that's required by the federal grant.
Okay,
And that exception of not being able to hire me is, yes, as Brent said, but it's for anything, like even if I were to come be a teacher aide, you can't hire me for a year.
oh, okay, I understand now. So it's that you can still be employed for just Sodexo, but you
You
couldn't
can't
be an
be employed
employee
for
for
the
the district for,
Correct.
okay, thank you for that clarification.
I had two things. One, thank you for looking at the insurance. Being on the PACE board opens my eyes quite a bit. And the insurance claims are going up in prices, and so being covered with more coverage is always a good thing recently. And it's really hard to get more coverage, so that must put good things on us because some districts are having a really hard time getting good coverage prices. So thank you so much for all that. Second, Amy, I appreciate your updates all the time. I would in the future, now that we're doing the farm to school, like once a quarter, learn more about, and thank you for talking about the muffins. I look forward to learning more. And so just hopefully we can talk more about that because I'm super excited about that program. That's it.
I wanted to add, Dawn, thank you for asking Brent about maybe a quarterly report on local fresh foods type of reporting, because I was able to integrate it into the contract. I checked with all it was fine to do that. And so as long as it's approved by Sodexo as well, then it's already in the contract. So-
Oh, yeah.
If you guys want reports from me, I'm happy to share out
Yeah.
or even just send over. I mean, we keep a lot of things.
And you do great with reporting. It's just good to have because it's a conversation that comes up a lot of the time with students and families and I've had them all the time. And so it's good to say, oh, Sodexo just gave this report. You can find it here or I can give you a copy or whatever. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate that.
And I hope that we can, outsourcing or resourcing, from local gardeners. I think that would be really great. I don't know if you have a connection with Road Food Unites.
I'm sorry.
Road Food Unites. They have done an incredible job of really partnering with local, farmers, local restaurants and not, maybe the restaurant piece is not applicable to this situation, but I love how they have partnered with other local communities to make healthier, nutrient dense food accessible for our families. And I just think that it's a win-win, right? We support our farmers, we engage our kiddos, and we provide healthy, more nutrient-rich foods.
Yeah, I will definitely look into.
Yeah, and I'm
reach out
happy to
them
connect
as
with you
well.
if you need that connection. I'm happy to facilitate that.
Yeah, I would love to have that connection. So I mean, right now, we're working very heavily with Rogue Valley Farm to School.
Oh, perfect.
As they are partners for the district in other ways.
Yeah.
Like Lincoln County's program
Mhm.
that they talked about and shared. They get gardens from their kid gardens even on some level. So those are things that I'm excited to look into with everyone as it works. And in fact, really hope that maybe we would want a presentation in the fall from Lincoln County's program.
Yeah.
Just to
That
really
would be really
show
good to
a
have.
highlight of what Sodexo does with partnerships of schools with some of that local.
Cool.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yes. Good stuff.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely be voting to approve this, and I think this is a shining example of why we do this process. And it helps just solidify, responding to some of the needs of our kids and our community and making things better. And I know that, that sourcing and working with local was a big part of this agreement, and, congratulations to you all. I appreciate you showing up in a big way and making those changes and continuing to be a good partner for the district.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Colin, for.
Yeah,
That was a blast.
yeah, thanks for serving on that. Some important stuff. Okay, with that, we will vote. Nancy,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Holly?
Yes.
I vote yes. Last thing is, last thing is board meeting calendar. So just want to make sure, we talked about last time with the OSBA conference, having that, if you look at November, date, we talked about moving that to the 13th. And then having a work session on the 20th. So I don't think we talked about this, but we've got a board work session on the calendar for July 24th. That would be this summer. So we'll do our organizing meeting on July 10th. That's when we'll swear in our board members. And then the work session on the 24th. Once again, we have the job meeting happening in January. I think that was pretty well received, moving it. Yeah, and then we'll have our work session on March 19th. So any major conflicts with any of those dates before we?
Is this enough? Did we only ended up with 2 work sessions, so there's no second meeting in August and no second meeting in December, right? That's mirrors this year?
No, that's how it's been the last several years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew we had added work sessions in there a couple of months.
Yeah, we don't
But-
have a board retreat on this calendar. Have we not put that on?
Well,
I
the
guess
summer one is-
that's the summer one.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
July.
right.
Okay, got it.
24, yeah.
Yeah, it's not really a retreat. It's a,
Yeah, it
Like
really
main
needs to be
retreat.
worded.
it's a convening.
Needs to
It's a
be
summer
right
convening
worded.
in a dark room.
Yeah. I don't know why it's not called a retreat.
It is on this.
But
not
why-
a retreat. It's not a retreat, no.
We are not doing fun things. No, just kidding.
So it did seem to me that the work sessions were limited, but I don't know. That, and then I wish I knew because my brain is just a little spinning wheel up here, but I did somewhere, I was at some workshop that talked about the, and it's fine for this year, but something we can talk about, having the board work sessions in the summer is sometimes contradictory because you've already passed your budget. So they have talked about if you talk about your board summers. Anyways, it's just something that we could also do later in the year because there's a work session in like March, but that's just conversation that they had talked about. I forgot if it was OSBA, NSBA, or I have no idea what workshop it was that I was on, but they did talk about having your all the boards have summer work sessions, but if you're talking about like, you know, anything budget wise, you have to wait a whole year to incorporate it sometimes. So everybody's looking, Denise is looking at me like but anyways, it's fine. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
One thing I think we could do, and maybe we do this in the summer work session, is actually outline, because we have 2 or 3 consistent things at each work session. Maybe
Right.
look at what makes sense for the summer work session, what makes sense for November, what makes sense for, well, we have JAB in January, what makes sense for March, because we have Kelly's report pretty much in March. That's been consistent over the last 2 years.
Right.
You know, and obviously depending on accountability legislation and how people, I mean, we may have to actually add more work sessions if there's 3 times a year where data is going to need to be presented. So, or we could do that in program reports too. So. But that might be something to outline what we want to shoot for in each of those work sessions.
I think it's a really good thought. I think my recommendation would be, let's approve this. And let's keep that top of mind, because I agree, there's just never enough time to learn. And then what happens is, you know, you end up with super long program reports and, you know, people feel rushed. And so, yeah, I think looking at that would be a really good idea, looking at adding 1 more work session. So, or looking at the timing of it too. So, yeah.
Especially with board self-evaluation.
Yes.
Engagement, all of those.
Yeah, we ended up doing essentially kind of a mini work session. We added it to learn more about that. So, yeah. Okay, great. With that, do I have a motion?
I move to approve the 25-26 board meeting calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Polly. Thank you, Dawn. Any further discussion? Nancy?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Polly?
Yes.
I vote yes. Calendar is approved. Although we may see that again.
TBD.
The agenda for 5-1 is there for your review. Anything stand out?
Just to note, I did not inform Denise, and so she didn't add it on here. We will have to open this with a public meeting on the.
I was wondering, because he said that, but I didn't see it on there.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, very good. We'll do that. Anything else?
So next meeting, we're reviewing student representative applications. Is Kaylin and the team on board to advertise that and have that ready?
It's already in the process.
Okay.
Nice.
We're gonna have to change the questions though.
Well, it's choose an event.
Oh, okay.
So I think they've
Oh,
just
okay.
traditionally chosen those events because that's the timing, but I'm
She
sure
did
prom
revise
and
the
different things
application,
will
but
be.
I didn't think to share it with you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, you can send it out.
It's fine. I was just like, some of the questions were like, how was your first day of school? Well,
So they have So they're gonna choose 3 events, right? And I think we gave suggestions
Oh,
of
okay.
fall events, so, but it'll be
Yeah.
spring. And there's
Yeah.
plenty
Or
to
whenever.
choose from.
Oh,
One
yeah.
of the questions was, how was your first day of school and when did you,
You're right.
yeah,
Yeah.
so.
I can
I'm sure she took care of it. I have
If you
confidence.
find it, send it
Yeah.
out. Yeah, it's great. Okay. Thank you all. We are adjourned.